Welcome to Time to Talk with Christine Collins. I've just been chatting to Christine Collins, who is an accredited pet Gundog instructor, based in Somerset and runs Town and Country dog training. She's also a specialist in the tea industry, which was fabulous because it is one of my favourite things to drink tea. So settle back with a cup of tea and enjoy as we chat about tea and dogs and dog training and golden retrievers for a change. So we've moved away from Vizslas when I want to golden retrievers. Anyway, enjoy, take care, and thanks for listening. Bye-bye. Hi folks, I'm here with the lovely Christine Collins from Town and Country Dog Training, and I'm really thrilled to have another accredited pet Gundog instructor on the podcast with me. But I don't want to talk about dogs straight away. So I've known Christine for Craigie about 10 years now. She came to a few training days, like pretty much all the training days with her Goldie. But Christine, you also own a tea company, don't you?
Yes, I do. And it's quite unusual because, especially in this country, people see tea as something very, everyday and nothing special. So you may hear by my accent, I'm not British by birth. I originally come from Germany, but I have been in this country now for, nearly 20 years.
Craigie, what made you come to the UK, Christine? Sorry, I'm going to keep jumping in. As soon as you say something interesting, I'm going to be in there. What made you come to the UK?
Well, it's a big hearty laugh, really, for my husband, which is British. So we met at, just around 2000, really. And so one of us, if it was about to last, had to move. So I was very happy to do so.
Brilliant. And were you in the tea business before you came to the UK, or was it like once you got to Britain that you decided you were going to get in the tea market?
No, I think I would have not been that confident. I worked in the tea industry for some years before I came to the UK. Mm-hmm. And very originally I had a career in hospitality, but it's a funny old business. And in my mid-20s, I thought it was time to move. And so I looked for a new job and had this opportunity to join this, in Germany, quite well-known tea company who also supplies a lot of tea to hotels and restaurants. Hence, it's probably the reason they gave me the job, because I had good background experience. Mm-hmm. So, that was about 5 or 6 years before I came to the UK.
Okay, and what made you branch out on your own? Because it's quite a specialised industry, isn't it? Quite a specialised business. What made you set your own company up, really?
When I came to the UK.
It was then. Well, so you didn't work for somebody else when you came to the UK. You decided to.
Yeah, well, I came here, and after the tea, I had a couple of short encounters at other companies, which is effectively how I met my husband. So it wasn't through the tea or through the hospitality; it was through another job I had. Right. And so he was still working for this company here, and they didn't want both of us to work in their offices, which was fair enough. And in fact, here comes the first dog encounter, because at the time I already had my first Goldie, so he came with me to the UK. Mm-hmm. He was 3 at the time, and I could have not taken him to the office of that particular company in the UK, whereas in Germany I could, which was the reason why I had him, because it was the first opportunity in my life where I could work but have a dog at the same time. Uh-huh. And so I had to have some form of work income or income work. Uh-huh. And had no real other idea other than my husband said, why are you not doing something with tea? So it's actually him who gave me that.
It's his fault.
Yes, his. And normally it doesn't take much. Give me an idea, and off I went. And that's now nearly 20 years later.
good grief, because I mean, I love the tea that I get from you. I absolutely love that peppermint tea. But you don't just do tea, do you? You do like teapots and tea sets. And I've got a really, really quirky teapot from you, which I absolutely love. It's like a Mad Hatter's teapot almost, you know, just the shape of it. It's glass, it's beautiful. So you sell like quite quirky things as well, don't you, to do with tea?
Yeah, it's so I mean I have to go back a little bit again because so yes, all very well the idea of starting a business related to tea. Somebody coming from the continent, moving to Britain, and then try to sell tea to British people, I thought was quite a moderate challenge. So I went back to my old employer, and over the time they had kind of expanded their distribution and brand to many other countries. So packaging was more international and so on. So I said, well, what about me distributing your brand in the UK? Mm-hmm. And they looked at me and said, if you really want to be that crazy, then we're not stopping you. And this is what I did. So a German person trying to sell a German tea brand to British people. And yeah, so that was that. And I went to lots of big hotels in London, and I did really well because 20 years back, the UK tea market, yes, it's a lot of volume, but not very much quality. Mm-hmm. And the whole setup in Europe is a little bit different. So tea is much more obvious displayed. It's not just something you put in somebody's cup. Mm-hmm. There's a lot more paraphernalia around it, which went down quite well. As time went on, it became more difficult because bigger companies here woke up to the same idea. Plus also it was just the hype of coffee started to become really big. Mm-hmm. If you remember, people were used to instant coffee, but suddenly you had all these fancy cappuccinos and lattes.
Espresso machines.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the big tea companies actually lost lots of money and revenue to coffee in the out-of-house market because people were not prepared to spend £2.50, £3 for a soggy tea bag rather than having a fancy cappuccino, which most of them at the time couldn't really make it home. Uh-huh. And but something else, so as part of my along the big line of careers, so I was quite early on introduced to the internet and what we could do with the internet. Again, that was 1998 or I don't know, more than 20 years ago.
Really on the cutting edge, because I got my first cat in 2000 and I remember asking this is a real blonde moment, Christine, you'll love this. So we were looking for a Maine Coon. I saw Maine Coon in the newspaper and I said, Kenny, I don't know what a Maine Coon looks like. And I says, do you think the library will still be open for me to go and have a look and see what I mean? This is 2000. And Kenny said, have a look on the internet. I went, oh my God, do you think they'll have it on the internet? Do you think we'll have cats on the internet? So going back to 98, using the internet, like real cutting edge stuff.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, that's slightly diverting from the tea, but
no, go on.
In between, before I came to the UK, I had job at a at a currency-based bank. So I left the tea company because I was there, I don't know, 6-7 years, and I was still young, and I thought that will do. So I need a new challenge. So I took that job at this. It was a traditional bank, but with an arm which made money from currency exchange at airports and train stations and whatever. And back then we were approaching the euro, so the currency.
Oh God,
so
yeah. Okay.
They had a big fear with lots of revenue loss from suddenly having numerous currencies less to exchange.
Yeah.
So they thought, okay, we have great locations, airports, train stations. They had some mobile units as well. So it's just like TravelX.
Mm-hmm.
And what can we do as alternative business?
Mm-hmm.
So that was my job, to find alternative ideas to their sort of traditional business. And what can we do with terminals? So the idea then was to, people would book their travels at the point of, at the airport, like with terminals.
Or like the point of sale, yeah.
Yes, yeah, but also actually doing the bookings. And
right.
well, it was a bit frustrating because it was a very interesting job, and it sort of triggered my love for the internet, really. And they were just too much of a traditional bank, so I could not.
No. So is that what gave you the idea to look to the internet in relation to your tea business when you came to the UK?
So the moment I came, so I did it for the first year, and then people started to ring up and say, well, where can we buy your tea? And I hadn't really focused on selling the tea to any retail shop, because the packaging wasn't really glamorous. It was really a trade brand with no focus on retail. And 20 years back, people's marketing approach was different. So a bit like some of the big champagne brands, there were brands really almost exclusive to hospitality businesses, which made sort of 4 and 5 star a lot more outstanding and justifying the price they charge for certain things. Mm-hmm. And anyway, so I thought, okay, let's do it yourself. So let's put up an online shop. And that was the first online shop in 2003, wow. Which is still really early days. Mm-hmm. And back from your Maine Coon, but I mean, if you ever shopped online in those days, there were some pretty scary online shops.
It was a bit dodgy. I can remember I had my first website 2001, and that was only because Kenny's a IT man, and he did one for my kinesiology for life, and it was really basic. It was really, really basic. Was it 2003, and then 2007 was my second one. But it was very, I mean, it was sparse, wasn't it? It was.
Yeah, and I mean, some people went and you had to fill in a form and put in your credit card detail. I mean, fraud was absolutely horrendous. And I said, well, I'm not doing that. So we went straight to, I mean, there's many merchants out there now, but I went with WorldPay, which still exists and we still use. So it's a kind of in between. So they take the payments, they process it, and you get paid. Obviously, you pay them as well. But so we went with them straight away and made it. I mean, I have some screenshots. If I look at that website now, it's really ancient, but it was very advanced at the time. Mm. And I never forget, so obviously being foreign, and I hadn't been married back then, so I had to try and open a bank account. Oh. And then, not just that, I mean, I managed to do that, but then I had to go back and basically try and relate the whole thing to a business and ask them, and I say the name now, so well, I don't say it, but it's one of the leading banks in the UK. Okay. And I went to the branch, and we had, so I had to take my husband, obviously, now husband, and say, I would like to open a merchant account. Oh. And I remember that lady looking at me, you would like to what? And I said, yes, I want to set up an online shop and I need a merchant account. So 2003, they didn't even have internet in the branch of the bank.
Oh, really?
So she said, well, I have to take this home and look it up at home, what it actually is. So, wow. Anyway, so that's just a little anecdote alongside. But yeah, so the UK was not at the forefront at the time.
No, we weren't. We weren't. And I moved to New Zealand then, and they were even like way behind us as well. I can remember coming back from New Zealand and seeing everybody with like the Bluetooth earpieces in, and going. We landed in Wiltshire, so we went to Swindon, and I was looking at people and going, "What have they got in their ear? What is that?" So we went into a mobile phone shop and went, "What's this thing?" And everybody's saying, he says, "That's Bluetooth." And I was like, "Okay, what's Bluetooth?" Because it hadn't reached New Zealand before we come back. You know, it was it's quite amazing how much we've come on. So what happened with your dog? You brought a dog over to the UK with you, and then that was the thing that spurred you to get your business set up because you couldn't take your dog to work with you.
Yeah, so actually I revolved my work around the dog.
You revolved, okay, that's a good plan.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, in early 2001, I mean, there was no such thing than dog walkers or dog boarders, or, you know, there were not services like you have today where you can have a dog more or less at any time without having to worry to have it looked after. And so you either had a dog and could look after it, or you simply...
You've got a cat.
Yeah, or a bird, yeah. Bird in a cage. So yeah, the dog came with me, and I mean, I'm 3 years of age he was then. I mean, he was well trained, and I could leave him for a certain amount of hours when I went to meetings. But often when I went to, like, not London, but somewhere in the country, he came with me, which is what he did since he was little. So he traveled with me in the car for a whole day. You know, I stopped and walked him, and then went to the next meeting. And yeah. So.
And he was your first Goldie.
He was my first Goldie, yes.
Okay.
So
was he the red working type that you like to favour?
Well, I got him in Germany. I mean, he was born in '98, and back then in Germany there was no such difference between work or show. There were just golden retrievers, and I simply, perhaps there was a difference, but I don't think so, and I didn't know enough. So I wanted a golden retriever, and that's what I got. And I never forget, because especially at the moment there is obviously so much hype about prices for puppies, and I paid back then quite a lot of money for him. I remember it like yesterday. I think it was 1,000 German mark. I mean, that's more than 20 years ago, which is a lot of money. But I still wouldn't agree to pay £3,000 for one now.
No, we'll get on to that towards the end. I'm going to talk to you about puppies because I know you've got puppy classes going. So was he like an Angus colour? Was he pale, or was he?
No, he was a bit like the ones I have now. So he was quite dark, and he reminds me quite a bit of Rocco, one of the ones I have at the moment.
Right.
So he wasn't very heavy build, but he wasn't equally very slim. So he was really a nice middle of the road dog.
Yeah.
I started, so the moment I got the puppy, it was always my intention to train it well. So to be able to take him wherever. So at the time I lived quite close to Frankfurt, which is a pretty big city. And in Germany, other than here, I mean, it got different, but you could take your dog pretty much everywhere. And no matter what restaurant, or you could take them to department stores, any shop really, probably other than food, like a butcher would probably not appreciate if you take him in. But I know, like yesterday, I went occasionally to Munich and went into big, like John Lewis type shops, and went in there with the dog and parked him in the corner while I was looking at the clothes rails. And the shop floor girls, they didn't pay any attention to me. They, oh, look at that dog, does he need more water? I said, no, he's fine, let's just leave him. He's told to stay, and that's fine, thank you.
Because there's only really out the clothes shops over here. I think it's only really white stuff that welcome dogs, and I think they were starting to open it up to dogs. But I don't know how I would feel. I think if the shop was full of really well trained dogs, it wouldn't bother me. But I know from going to the game fairs and walking behind dogs, cocking their legs every 2 minutes on like the stalls and the I don't think I would want that in a department store. But it depends, doesn't it, on how well trained the dog is.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it's all about. I mean, I didn't take the dog in there because I wanted to show off. I took it in because I trained it at the same time to just do as told. And the same in the, I mean, when that first dog, he was a puppy, and I went out with friends in the evening, and he came as soon as he could come and sat under the table while we had a meal, and that was it. I mean, I walked him across the pedestrian zone in the big town off the lead. He was fine.
Yeah. Cool. That is really good to hear. When did you start getting interested in gun dog training, Christine?
Well, even then, so I tried to, well, didn't try, but I started training him with some people. So I took him to puppy classes, obviously, and again, which all happened outside. So I never remember having taken a dog in a village hall, or always trained him outside. And yes, then I wanted to go further, and I can't really remember how, but I think even then I wanted to train the dog along the lines of what he's been bred for. So off I went and found some people, and the only thing, and that's what I see now is very important, so he wasn't very well introduced to gunshot.
Okay, was that over here, Christine, or was that still in Germany?
No, that was still back in Germany.
In Germany, okay.
So, which haunted him for the rest of his life. So
how did they introduce them?
Well, honestly,
making me sit up now. How did they introduce them?
I can't really remember, but I was never quite sure if I lived next to a church at the time, and I was never sure whether it was the church bells or if it was really the not ideal introduction to the gunshot, or a combination of both. But he could not stand these noises. He was absolutely horrified by firework. He wanted to really dig himself under the sofa and not come out. So a big lesson learned very early on.
That's tough.
Yeah, and so, which to some extent was the reason when I came here that I didn't really pursue the gun dog training any further, because I knew the dog wasn't really the type, or by then I had other bigger things to sort out. But he just really remained a pet. But he was a brilliant retriever, so I could have gone probably very far with him. But so yes, he was definitely a very lovely
dog as well. So who came next? Who came after your first dog?
Well, the next dog came while the other one was still about. Because he passed when he was, I don't know, 12, 13, so he did really well.
Yeah.
And he was obviously approaching, I think when he was around 10. And no, I remember, no, it was when we moved. So we moved to Somerset in 2008, which, yeah, exactly, he was 10. And so I thought, now's the time to have 2 dogs.
Was that Charlie?
Yes, the second dog was Charlie. And yes, Charlie was a big wake-up call, because Charlie was definitely Charlie. And if you had a dog for 10 years who basically behaved like your shadow, and you only had to look at him and he did what you wanted, to have a puppy again was very awakening. And so yeah, Charlie was a challenge. And that's how I met you.
It is. I'm laughing because I remember Charlie. He was a nutter. He was a nice nutter, but he was.
Yeah, he was a beautiful dog. but which just shows the looks alone don't do it. So he was definitely from a different background.
He was a great dog. I mean, he was really switched on and really quite feisty and, you know, full of himself. He was lovely, but I can imagine him being a real challenge to have in the house and train.
Yeah, I mean, he was a dog where finally, I mean, all the things I then kind of stopped or couldn't do with the first dog. He, I put all this thought and plans into him, and he was the first dog I took to working tests. And I never forget that. I think the second test I did with him, he came back with a rosette, so it was great, really. And from that was me hooked on working tests, basically.
Because you've competed a lot, haven't you?
Well, I competed as much as time allowed, really, and you got to be at some point a bit careful if you want to go every weekend. You kind of get questions why that really is necessary, but so.
I take it that's at home.
Yeah, that's at home, yes. And yeah, so anyway, it's nice. And I listened to your podcast with Hannah, and a bit for the same reason. It's a great bunch of people out there. And yes, there are some very competitive people. I would say I am competitive, but I can also just relax, and it's nice to sit around with the people when you wait for the next test and have a bit of a chat and see them every few weeks through the season. And it's just nice. It kind of gets your mind off every day and other problems.
That's really interesting, isn't it? Because when I did working tests, I don't know if it's just because of when I was doing working tests with Ziggy and with Angus as well. I don't know if it's because I had so many different things I was juggling. I was juggling the pet Gundog and my behaviour work, and I was writing books, and I was running the guild, and I would go there and I would sit down and I'd go, oh, I could be doing this and I could be, and I just couldn't switch off and just sit for 2 hours waiting my turn, you know. And so that was the one thing that really put me off working tests, just the hanging around. But you're a different temperament to me, so you quite enjoyed the social side of it and catching up with people.
Yeah, and I mean it's there's a bit, because with the Goldies, and they obviously run. They don't have their own, but we have a occasional breed specific working test, but not many. But most of the tests are run alongside Labradors, and the occasional flat coat, which is even more rare than a golden. And so it's almost the bunch of people with the Goldens, they deep down always want to sort of show they're there next to the Labrador people, and we get very excited when we make it to a rosette, because then that's one Labrador down.
You are competitive, aren't you? We'll show those lab people. Come on.
Yeah, go. Well, because, you know, Goldens, they are just a bit different. And it's interesting because the last couple of years, quite a few strong Labrador people suddenly woken up and almost trying out a golden retriever. People who are seriously trialing and stuff. I noticed quite a few now adding a golden retriever to their repertoire almost, because a few of the Goldies been doing very well. And but that again is a totally different story. So it's nice to be in a minority and still do well.
Yeah, I mean they're a completely different kettle of fish to the Labrador. You know, just everything about them. They hunt differently. They've got a different mindset. The temperaments are completely different. Why did you go with the Goldie? Why didn't you go for a Labrador? What was it about the Goldie that appealed, or Golden, as I should say properly?
Well, it's probably, I just liked, yes, I'm one of those. I like the look of them, but I also like their temperament. So I read up about them before I decided, and to me, they just fitted my own kind of character, perhaps. And yeah, I wanted a proper dog. I wanted a sizable dog, let's say. I didn't want a Cocker Spaniel or I don't know, I wanted to compete. So hence it had to be a purebred dog. I didn't want a Heinz because I wasn't very interested in doing something like agility. It wasn't my kind of cup of tea, but so yeah.
No pun intended. Sorry.
Yeah, and every time, so well now I have 2 other dogs now, and every time I was thinking about another puppy, I really went back and thought, do I really want to have another Goldie, or shall I perhaps something else? And even looked at other dogs, physically looking at other dogs, but I just walked away every time.
It's funny, isn't it? Because you know that I'm thinking about getting a puppy, and when I think about having a golden retriever, I'm just kind of dismissing anything that isn't a dead ringer for Angus, which to me means that I'm not ready for another golden retriever, because I'll just compare it the whole time. You know, so, well, that hasn't got the same kind of coat as Angus, and so I don't know. I'm probably not going to go for another golden retriever.
Well, time will tell.
Because you know, it's I think I would just compare it the whole time with Angus. It's funny, isn't it? Because I don't really with the labs, but I think with the Goldie, he just used to make me laugh. I mean, you know what he was like. You met me, was a bit of a blonde, and yeah, I don't know. I don't think I'm over losing him yet. Actually, I think there's that whole thing where out of all my dogs, he needed me the most, and I wasn't there when he died, and that's still there with me. So I don't know. Sometimes I think, oh, I'd love another Goldie, and then I think the hair. He used to shake, and he'd have this big blonde cloud come off him. Are your dogs like that? Do they mold really bad?
One does, the other one doesn't. They have totally different coats. So one has almost like 3 layers of coat, and the other one has a lot less. So when I brush them, I mean, the thick coat, I could knit a jumper from his hair, but the other one barely fills my hand. So they're really different. And I mean, that's the thing. Deep down, they golden retrievers, but they're all different. And in a way, the Labradors as well. I mean, now, especially since I started training dogs, they vary so much. And hence, I think if you like the breed in general, then, and you know the dogs I have at the moment, I mean, one of them, if you thought Charlie was a nutter, then he is twice over a nutter. But he told me so much. So the most things I learned is from him.
Yeah.
Whereas the easy dogs, you don't really learn from them. They're just like a pair of slippers, you know, you put them on and you take them off. Whereas the other ones are like heavy shoes with many laces, and you have to tighten them really, otherwise you're not gonna keep them on your feet.
Yeah, I mean, Bart was my first Gundog. I'd had dogs before him, but he was my first Gundog. And he was a really difficult dog. I learned so much from him, and then having him alongside Angus as well. You just kind of, you learn so much from them. So you've just said that you've started training dogs. So what made you change career from, and I know you still got your tea company, so what made you pull away from that and start training dogs? Why did you come and do the APGI, the Accredited Pet Gun Dog Instructor program? What made you decide you wanted to train dogs for a living?
Well, I'm always, well, not always. I mean, when I was younger, it was worse. I really sort of got a bit twitchy after probably 4 or 5 years, as you do, and needed to do something else. And I've been doing the tea business for, well, 15 years then, probably. And in the meantime, my husband and I, we both work in the business. I mean, it's fine. We get on, and we have a big open office space. We have a few girls. And in a way, I have to credit him again, because he, I don't know, it came about. I mean, I don't really want to say the word, but let's say a few years back, the political map was about to change. And I'll kind of describe it rather than name it. And so a lot of things we sell come from Europe. And there was a serious sort of thought about how this all will gonna pan out going forward, which we still don't know. But anyway, it was time to have something to back up to. And it was his idea again. So why are you not doing something with dogs? So first he said, why are you not doing something with tea? Mm-hmm. Not often that I really sort of agree when somebody says something, but I thought, interesting. So and it was one of those moments where you talk about something one week and then the next week, and I actually looked it up. It was October 2017. Mm-hmm. And you had just sort of promoted your second round of head Gundog instructors.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, let's have a little email to Les and see what might happen. And well, everything else is history. So off I went, not quite knowing what to expect. I mean, I knew you for, well, I looked that up as well, actually, and I still have really old emails, unbelievable. So I found emails from as far back as 2000 and, I don't know.
9?
Yeah, 11 I found one, but it must have been before that, because you had were just about to launch your pet Gundog puppy.
Okay.
And March 13. I mean, I've been to you before, but it was when I then had the third dog, Rocco, who was a puppy in spring 13. So the book came at a very good moment. Anyway.
Planned it for you, Christine.
Sorry?
I planned it for you.
Yeah, that's good. So that was the beginning of the new path, the new career. And yeah, lucky in a way, I didn't quite know what to expect, because it definitely got a bit hairy along the line.
Just a little bit hairy.
Well, it's quite hard if firstly, I never went to university. Mm-hmm. So I'm not academic. I'm probably more a sort of hands-on person. So the practical side of things is good. Mm-hmm. But to sit down and write hundreds of words was definitely at times an ask. And then running an existing business in the background with its on and offs, it was a definite challenge. Mm. And but I enjoyed it, and it's probably the most I've ever written every month in one document. So that was definitely a different kind of practice. And don't forget, I'm still a foreigner, you know, English is not my first language. And sometimes it took me a bit longer to understand what to actually look for. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was then almost a double challenge, really.
It was amazing. I used to love your videos when you were away with the dogs, and you used to send these amazing, you'd send your homework in, and you were like knee deep in snow. The snow would be all packed down and it'd be banked, you know, either side of you, like 6 foot, and you'd be doing all these retrieving exercises in the snow with your dogs. They're just awesome.
Yeah, I remember there was one encounter. As usual, the dogs come on holiday, so went skiing in January, and I think it was a clog-related exercise.
It
was. I had to find a large enough space which was actually kind of flattened, and where I could lay the exercise out. And I had just put the dummies out, and then some skiers came from one and sort of skied across my clock setup. And
did you throw a snowball at them?
no, but I kind of sort of growled at them probably while they were coming this way now. Yeah, good fun.
It was good.
It was actually, I mean, again, the practical side was good fun to stand out in the snow and do it. But then in the evening, to sit down and try and do your homework, because if you get homework every month, so you have roughly 4 weeks, and you go nearly 2 weeks on holiday because it has to make sense driving all the way from the UK down to Austria. After many hours outside and then going out for dinner, and in between trying to make an hour or two and write some homework. Yes, I'm glad I'm not doing it anymore.
Sure, she'll put people off. Oh, it's easy. It's easy.
Well, you get there, you know, you just have to be determined.
Well, if you're not determined to do your homework, you'll not succeed in business.
Yeah,
because that's what it's about, isn't it? You have to have that discipline and motivation to actually get on and do stuff. Otherwise, your business won't work either, will it? Because you'll just you won't put the effort in to make it work.
Well, it's a great bit of self-discipline, really. I mean, it's there is no, if it's your own business, there is no excuse. Of it's only yourself to blame, and it's the effort you put in, and it's the vision you have, and it's also daily adjustment, really. I mean, we just had another 3 months of things we weren't expecting, and planning became more and more difficult over time, but at the moment it's just more or less become impossible, apart from perhaps one day, perhaps 1 week to another. And you just gotta have the faith in yourself and what you can do and get on with it.
And go with the flow as well. Yeah. And Christine, you hit when you were accredited last year. It was this time last year, wasn't it?
Yeah, I looked that up as well, and I could actually not believe it is a year now. I think it was the 8th of June or something where you sort of send the final relief email.
Yes, yeah, take a breath, you've done it. But you hit the ground running. I mean, you were amazing, you know, you had your website set up and your business, your logo and everything, and you've been really busy with classes, haven't you? I mean, not because of lockdown, but before lockdown, I could just see setting, you know, beginner pet Gundog up, and then you having to set another one up because you were full, and then you were working with, is it Bath Pets?
Yeah, Bath Country Pets. So it's a place to the north of Bath, and where I am, I mean, we based just south of Bath, so yes, we're part of Somerset, but we're the sort of quiet, unknown end of Somerset. When people come here, they always say, "Oh, we didn't even imagine what it was like here," because it's nowhere on the way from A to B. You need to have a reason to come here.
Okay, nice.
And there's quite a lot of Gundog people in and around Bristol, so that's quite saturated, I would say. But there's not an awful lot in Bath or in the surrounding, because then you have that gap back to Wiltshire, almost where you were before.
Yeah.
And so I always saw Bath as a very interesting place to be, as sort of within proximity. And yeah, I kind of did that little joint venture with these people. They run well, what they call it today, a pet hotel. So they take dogs in, and right. It's quite high end, but they lovely people, and yeah, so we have a bit of ground, and so that went very well as well.
Fantastic. How did you find it? How did you find setting up dog training classes? Do you enjoy it, first of all?
Yeah, I do actually. No, I do really. It's very different. Well, it's different and not different to what I've been doing through parts of my life. But I mean, I've been to countless meetings. I've been on the sales side of things. So for me, it wasn't really a big effort to set the business up because I've done it a few times. And it's no matter what you sell at the end, sorry to call it selling, but whether you sell your classes or you sell your product, even non-physical product is still a product.
Yeah.
So you got to promote it, and you got to tell people it's there and for them to purchase. So it's the same principle, but it's different in a way because a dog is obviously something very personal to people, and it needs a slightly different approach. Let's say if I go for a hard selling product, so I have a product and I believe it's good, so I go to somebody and I have a meeting and they either like it or not, and I have a certain repertoire to tell them why they should have it. And then you walk away and they use it or they don't. With a dog it's different, because if you look at an owner and his dog and you know it's not going well, and then you know it's the owner, because if you were to deal with the dog, you would do it, then the dog is different. So then that's when it becomes interesting, because you have to obviously, in the nicest possible, tell the people they have to change the way they are, and they have to pay you that you tell them they're basically not doing it right. So that's a slightly different situation. So you have to be quite political correct in places, but equally quite straight, because they get even more frustrated if you were to say to them, well, I paid you X amount for the lesson, but nothing has changed. So you got to be upfront enough to tell them, okay, if you do this and this and you change it the way you're doing it from now, then it will get better, but you got to do it. If you don't, then
you have to work with such tact and diplomacy with people, because their dogs are the world. A lot of people, their dogs are the world, and they want to get everything right by the dog, but then there's a lot of pressure on them a lot of the time through social media to have this lovely fluffy relationship with them. And when the dog gets to a certain age, you can't have that fluffy relationship without the boundaries. And then we have to tell them, well, actually, you put some boundaries in here.
Yeah, it's boundaries which people struggle most with. And I'm seeing now, so, I mean, I always run puppy classes, but at the moment more than ever before, really, because I see it in different ways. There's what I call the proper lockdown puppies, which are actually not the ones which are born during lockdown. It's the ones that have been born before and people just about took home when lockdown started.
Lockdown came in, yeah.
I think they are, because they had 3 months growing up through lockdown, and people kind of, left to online, looking up, trying themselves, no real sort of engagement out and about, not taking the dogs to many places. Not that I'm saying the dogs didn't have chance to interact with each other, which is not the problem. It's the people taking them to the park, to, I don't know, different places, the road, the bus, you have it. So dogs just were not made familiar with everyday life as it would be under normal circumstances. So I have a group just with puppies like that. So they're now roughly 6 months old. So in more or less the worst age the puppy can be.
Yeah.
And some of these people are really struggling, because they thought, oh, up to about 4 weeks ago, the puppy was lovely. Yes, we know that, but now it's not anymore. And you haven't noticed, and you just gotta, set your boundaries now.
Yeah, it's really difficult, because a lot of people were really spoiling the dogs over lockdown, because they were the lifeline, really, weren't they? Something, and especially if people are living on their own, something to stroke, something to cuddle, just having this other living, breathing being in the home with them. They would have lavished a lot of love and possibly some frustration on them as well. And I can imagine those, well, they'll be adolescents now, these young dogs.
Yeah, they got the real wrong message, because
Yeah,
people didn't want to set boundaries, because they probably didn't have many boundaries for themselves, because life was like, well, it was, every day was the same, and it was all,
Groundhog Day.
yeah.
Yeah, we are still in Groundhog Day up in Scotland. It's the 16th of June when we're recording this, and we are still in pretty much lockdown mode up here. Not like down south where you're queuing for 2 hours outside of Primark. I know.
I don't get it. I mean, but we were talking about it this morning, and it's all very well us living out in the countryside or relatively remote. But if you really live in a town, and it doesn't even have to be a really big town, people, it's getting tight. And if you can't get out and you start to realize what you would have done under normal circumstances, it's quite hard, especially with kids, and not having the communication you would normally have. I mean, it's all very well, and we've seen it, lots of online training popped up, but it's not the same.
People need people. We are wired. We are wired as a species to be with people and to touch. It's the touch that's going to be really difficult for people to not be able to give people hugs when they see them again, because we're one of the only species that when we are emotional, whether that's really happy or really scared or anxious, we are one of the only species that need to reach out and touch another living being. Which is probably why puppy prices have gone through the roof now, because people are desperate for that comfort and company. So
yeah, it's one of the, it goes along when I sometimes say to people, don't touch your dog at that moment. They really like, oh, why should I not touch my dog? Because sometimes you just shouldn't, because anyway, it causes reaction, and then you just undo all the things you just try to achieve.
yeah,
They really look at me like, oh, I want to touch no, not at this moment. I'm not saying don't ever touch your dog, but just don't touch it right now.
it's timing. It's using the touch as a reward as well, isn't it? As well as because we want
but people really struggling to use their voice. I mean, I'm a big one sort of between being mellow and good and praise with your voice, and then be strong with your voice.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard for people to learn to do that.
It is.
Men in particular. I mean, if I say, come on, bit of a high-pitched voice.
Oh, I do. I say, come on, get in touch with your inside. Get the voice up, up, up.
Yeah.
Yeah, just imagine something and then get it up. Oh, we give the men hell when they come training with us. I do anyway. Yeah. It's good fun. It's good fun. So, have you got many puppies at the minute training with you?
Yeah, I think I got probably the maximum I can have. Obviously, yes, in Scotland it's different, but down here we're now allowed to meet in groups of 6, so that means 5 dogs and people plus me.
Excuse me. Mm-hmm.
And so I have 3 groups running at the moment, so that makes 15.
So how are you coping? Have you got like markers down where everybody's got to work their dogs, or?
Yeah, I found a stick which is 2 meters long, and it's quite amazing. If you imagine 2 meters, that's the length of your bed and probably the width of most people's big bed, so 2 by 2.
Mm-hmm.
And in a room, it doesn't look it looks quite big, 2 meters. But if you go out in a big field, 2 meters is nothing.
No.
So I have my 2 meter pole, and I mean, I space people out 4-6 meters, so everybody got their little station and with the same setup. to make sure, and so even that doesn't look crowded at all. I mean, I could have 20 people, which I don't want, but even 20 people would not look very much.
I mean, when you think about it, when you get your person and then you get the dog and then you leave a gap and then you get a person, I mean, we would normally space where classes out,
Yeah.
2 meters or so apart anyway. It's only when you're huddled in talking. I saw one on Facebook the other day. So do you know how people say it's like two shopping trolleys and nose to nose is 2 meters? And I saw one, it's two German Shepherds nose to nose. It's 2 meters. There's two Great Danes nose to nose. Is two, and you go, oh,
Yeah, I
okay.
mean, it's the width of your car almost, I
Yes,
mean,
the width of the car.
yeah, it's not very much really.
No.
In a big open space, like I say, in a more enclosed room. So that's obviously public classes in village halls and so on is not an option at the moment. But
No.
then again, it's better outside anyway.
So have you got any people who paid really silly money for their puppies?
Well, I ask a
They
few
started
because
coming
I
through.
was, sorry.
Have they started coming through yet? These really expensive puppies.
I did ask a few people, not everybody. I tried to ask the spaniels, which are still very popular.
Uh-huh.
Mm.
I can't say anything. I've got a spud.
Yeah, no,
Bless
they're
them.
lovely dogs if you get it right, but you really got to get it right. Otherwise, they can be beyond a challenge. And I've seen a few, and I would not choose to have that dog when it got to that stage. So people have to work really twice or three times as hard to make it better than others once they lost it.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's probably, I mean, Labradors, I can't believe, gone up quite dramatically as well. And I haven't met anybody who paid beyond £2,000 yet, but I'm sure enough people do.
And there's
But
still you got people pay £2,000.
no, I've met people who probably paid 1,500, 1,600. So what
Crikey.
I said, I did not meet anybody who
No.
paid more than 2,000, but I'm sure there's enough out there who did.
I mean, it's amazing. I saw there was a breeder put it up there that a woman offered her £4,000 for a puppy. All her puppies had gone, and she was offered 4,000 for a fox red Labrador puppy because the children couldn't go to Disneyland, so they wanted to get a dog instead. And you think this is madness. And breeders are getting written to now to say, can you put your prices up to the market, to the market level, so that we're not ending up having people buying puppies and then selling them straight on. But it's Lucy's law, I think. I'm sure it's Lucy's law where only a breeder can sell a puppy under 6 months old or something. So I wouldn't be able to go and buy 2 or 3 puppies and then sell them under Lucy's law, because then I'd be classed as a puppy farmer, which is great. So I'm hoping Lucy's law will protect a lot of these puppies coming through, but it's just put a price tag on Gundogs and made them incredibly desirable for stealing, even more desirable for theft than what they were, which is awful.
I mean, there's too many reasons why it's just going the wrong way. And I mean, yes, people didn't want to carry on breeding because they didn't know what was going to happen. But I wonder the reduction in breeding didn't really help either, because the demand has gone so extortionate. You can argue it either way. No matter what, too many will end up in rescue or rehomed, because a lot of people will have to go back to work at some point.
Yeah.
And an awful lot of people won't have the money to keep the dog and having looked after by third-party people like dog walkers or you have it, because it all adds up. And one thing I thought, yes, even let's say £2,000 is as a one-off. Yes, it's like going on holiday. A holiday with a family, you probably spend £2,000, £3,000, 4,000 as a one-off.
Yeah.
So yes, the actual purchase price of the puppy is okay, but I mean, you have to come up with another £100 on average, probably every month of a period for insurance, for vet, for food, for illness, for looking after while you're actually going perhaps on holiday, and so on. So that's £1,200 a year times 10 on average. The dog may live 10 years. So.
And then some. I mean, you know, and you think how much it costs to feed them, and then all of the equipment, and your puppy's going to chew through a couple of beds, so there's another couple of £100 straight off. And you know,
it's that people don't think about, and that's actually, I think that is what should be communicated a lot more. It's the running cost.
It's the running cost, but my goodness, can you imagine how much it costs to insure a puppy that's £3,000?
Yeah.
Can you imagine the insurance companies are going to be going, oh, your beauty. They're going to be rubbing their hands together, knowing that they can really put the prices of an insurance up, because they've got to, at the end of the day, if anything happens to your dog, they've got to pay you the price you bought the puppy on. Normally, that's, you know, if anything happens and the dog dies, then they reimburse the cost of the dog if you've got a good insurance company.
I just hope that a few people will remain sensible, because at some point I want to have another puppy, and I'm definitely not prepared to pay even near £2,000. I mean, I think a Goldie at the moment goes probably for 12 or 1400 at a reasonable price. But that would definitely be my absolute limit.
So you're going to get another puppy?
Not in the foreseeable, but eventually.
You're going to go for the same again? You're not going to be tempted by a blonde?
Yeah. No. I don't know. I looked at, I mean, training different breeds now. I don't know. I really like the large Münsterländer, and I remember we had once a discussion about it. But there's some practical reasons as well. It sounds odd, but they're obviously still quite rare in this country. So if you really want to carry on with competition, you've got to go even further. And there's even sort of less of them about, and it's a totally different set of people again, and you have to train it a little bit different. So let's see what the time tells when it comes.
I could see with the Lodge Munsterlander. Did you ever see Jasper, who trained with me?
No, I've just seen pictures.
Yeah, he was a beauty. I could imagine you with the Lodge Munsterlander, but you'd have to do the HPR work with it.
Yeah, exactly. And I've seen quite a few Whistlers now at training, and I got a Weimaraner here coming, and I'll think about it for a bit longer.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, Christine, the time just disappears. Cup of tea, have a chat, it's gone. Christine, I'm so glad you came on. It's been really good catching up with you, and I'm so impressed by everything that I see on Facebook with all the different classes, and the fact that you're back, you know, a couple of weeks out of lockdown, and you're back at class again, and you're helping people train their dogs. I think it's fantastic. It's a really good stuff.
Yeah, it's I was quite surprised myself, really, how almost little has changed apart from not having done it for 3 months. And when I kept in touch with people through lockdown, and I wasn't going mad on the kind of videoing stuff. I divided people in their groups as I had them on the field, and just sort of gave them something to think about every fortnight to stretch it out a bit. And apart from a few who really life kind of changed, most of them the groups are coming back.
Great.
And one-to-ones are slowly coming back. And I phased it out a bit, so I started with a few one-to-ones, and then we had to go ahead for the small groups, which is happening now. And I just try to kind of get them to a good end before I just start all over again.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited to see all the new soon accredited new pet Gundog instructors, because our group will grow, and it's going to be even more exciting going forward.
It is. It's really exciting. I've been sorting everything out today and this week.
So are they getting the news soon then?
Well, by the time this comes out, yeah, they'll all be accredited.
Oh,
we'll have 5 new instructors, which is great. And then the current group, there's 11 on the current group.
Oh, wow.
So they'll be, this time next year, they'll be accredited.
And then you're going to start soon recruiting the next group.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as we know what's happening in relation to hotels up here, then I'll start putting together. There's no point in spending time putting together a prospectus if we don't know what's happening. So I need to wait and see what's happening, then pull the prospectus together and then go for it. For January, you're ready for January. So so by the time this comes out, we'll have 5 more accredited pet Gundog instructors, which is really exciting.
Yeah, good.
Great stuff. Christine, it's been a pleasure, and I'm going to end the podcast and then say goodbye to you properly afterwards. So thank you very much for coming on and joining me.
Well, thank you. It was a very lovely chat.
It was. Thank you. You take care, and I'll catch up with you again soon. Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Stay
Bye.
safe.